If a civilization reflects the land that nurtures it, that may explain why Wisconsinites are such a tough, hardy lot. After all, like the land itself, you were formed by wind and water, ice and snow, and yes, even fire. This is especially true of the northeastern portion of the state along the western shores of Green Bay, the 1,000-square-mile expanse of forests, fields, and streams that we call Oconto County. To better understand the land from which we've sprung, let's take a look at the geology and geography of this region. Perhaps we'll discover a few surprising facts that may help explain who we are and how we got that way. Present-day Wisconsin is located between the central lowlands of North America and the so-called Canadian Shield. Geologists have discovered rocks in Wisconsin dating back more than 3 billion years, among the oldest yet found on the North American continent. Geologic evidence suggests that some 600 million years ago, a huge sea covered most of Wisconsin and upper Michigan. As it advanced and retreated over the following 250 million years, the central portion of the Canadian Shield slowly eroded, and the debris was redistributed on adjacent shores. Over time, the sand was compacted and cemented into a sandstone base that was overlaid by various deposits, which in turn lithified into dolomite and sandstone. These are the primary bedrock underlying Oconto County today. Toward the end of the Paleozoic era, about 250 million years ago, north-central Wisconsin was uplifted to form the Wisconsin Dome. As a consequence, all the previously deposited rock layers sloped away in all directions, and that's why the major waterways of Wisconsin today all begin in this elevated upland and flow either to Lake Superior, Lake Michigan, or the Mississippi River system. The Oconto River follows this drainage pattern. The present surface of Wisconsin slowly evolved over the following 300 million years as this erosive process continued. It was greatly accelerated during the last 30,000 years during the last major advance of the Pleistocene ice sheets. Now the Pleistocene, which started about 2.5 million years ago and ended about 11,700 years ago, marked the beginning of the Ice Age, with frequent periods of cooling and warming. During the most recent cooling, ice began to accumulate near Hudson Bay and grew in depth as additional snow was compressed into new ice. Eventually, the enormous weight of the ice mass caused it to begin flowing outward at a rate of inches to miles per year. By about 2 million years ago, huge intercontinental ice sheets stretched from northeast North America, across Canada, and into the northern U.S. They reached down into the Midwest as far south as Illinois and Indiana. There were at least 4 separate advances and retreats of the ice sheet. The most recent was the Wisconsin glaciation, beginning just 25,000 years ago. The farthest advance happened about 15,000 years ago and was largely responsible for laying down such familiar features as kettles, moraines, drumlins, and collapsed hill topography. The Great Lakes themselves are a product of glacial scour and subsequent pooling of meltwater at the rim of the retreating ice. The Wisconsin glaciation affected far more than just the upper Midwest. Evidence of the wide glaciation can easily be found in the ice grooves left behind on islands in Lake Erie and even in New York City's Central Park. Niagara Falls was another result, as is the course of the Ohio River today. And when the glaciers finally retreated, that left behind the terminal moraines that form present-day Cape Cod, Block Island, Martha's Vineyard, Nantucket, and Long Island itself. The last glacial advance reached along Lake Michigan shoreline as far south as Two Rivers, before retreating for the final time just 10,000 years ago. When the Great Melt came, a thick cover of various deposits called drift was left behind, burying more than 3/4 of the bedrock surface. Now, except for the southwest portion of the state, the so-called driftless area, the rest of Wisconsin's topography was either eroded by glacial runoff or formed by the materials left behind. The surface of eastern Oconto County is primarily glacial lake sediments, while the remainder is largely glacial till deposits. After the ice melted, the most distinguishing feature of the Wisconsin landscape was the appearance of enormous evergreen and hardwood forests. They once stretched across the northern reaches of the state from Lake Michigan to the Mississippi River and beyond. It was this resource and the habitat it provided for fur-bearing animals that created early economic interest in the region. The primary vegetation covering today's Oconto County is maple, hemlock, and yellow birch. Black spruce, tamarack, and cedar are found in the central, east central, and the southeastern areas. The northern third of the county lies within the Nicolet National Forest, and about 17% of the total land area is government-owned. Elevations range from around 660 feet at Green Bay to 1,320 feet in the far northwest near Townsend, about where Oconto, Langlade, and Forest counties meet. Oconto County's most striking inland geophysical feature is the Oconto River. It stretches almost 57 miles from the confluence of its north and south branches near Suring and drains an area of 2,400 square miles. Over the millennia, it has provided an important food and transportation resource for Native Americans and settlers alike. It is also prized for its recreational offerings, from fly fishing on the south branch to whitewater canoeing on the north branch. Oconto County's history is amazingly varied, as we've seen. No matter whether your interest is geologic, the lives and the cultures of the aboriginal and prehistoric inhabitants, or the early settlers and their descendants, there's plenty here to keep the modern-day explorer fascinated for years to come.